Okay. So yesterday we began talking about the idea of tying. I hope you hear me. It looks like you are. The idea of tying ties on Shabbat. And we said that there had to be two criteria. There were two basic criteria. If you have both, it's asur mideoraita. If you have one, it's asur midrabanan. If you have neither, it's allowed. Right. So those criteria, if you remember, were: is it an enduring knot, what we call a kesher shel kayama? And the second thing that we had is was it something that was an artisan's knot, like a sailor knot or a tradesman's knot, something that also for the same type of reason it's professional. By the way, pardon my dress down Friday today, but I'm I got up today and said I can't put on a shirt with a collar, so my apologies.
That's okay.
Anyway, it says like this: Yes,
double knot, Rabbi. Double knot. Would that be a special knot, or is that just a regular knot?
We'll get to that today. No, it's a great question. That's what we're going to get to today. Yes, אומרים שצריך להיזהר שלא לקשור בשבת שני קשרים זה על זה בשבת, אף על פי שאין עושה כמקיימה, מפני שאין אנו בקיאים לדעת מה נקרא מעשה אומן. שני קשרים זה על זה נחשבים כמעשה אומן. So one opinion holds that you can't tie a double knot because we're not sure what this ma'aseh uman is. We're not sure what's the definition of a tradesman's knot, and perhaps a double knot fits into that category, so therefore you can't do it. That is opinion number one. V'yesh cholkim, but there's a second opinion. Umatirim l'kshor shnei kshrim zeh zeh, kol sheno oseh k'nekema. It says there are an opinion says it's not an artisan's knot, and provided provided you're not doing it in order that it lasts for a week, then it's allowed. So in other words, what we're seeing from here is part of the story is it, when you tie it, it's not, is it going to last for a week or not? It's what's like the intention, right? What's your purpose, right? So if my purpose is to tie it for a couple hours or even a day, then it's not going to be a problem. So this is the opinion. He says, here. He says the opinion is to be lenient in this matter. So that's the halacha. Listen, if someone wants to be stringent, so go for it, but you don't have to. We don't hold by that. So in other words, what we would say is that on a double knot, like my shoelaces, right? My intent, it is not a tradesman's knot. Right? Anyone could tie a double knot. And honestly, a double knot is mainly because we don't know how to tie a good knot, right? So it's not a tradesman's knot. And it's not our intention when we put on our shoes for that to last for a long time. Why? Because no one wants to go to sleep in their shoes. Right? No one expects that to last. You expect that that's going to come undone at some point. Why do you double knot it? Because if you single knot it, it's going to come undone by itself in a matter of minutes or an hour or two, which we don't want. Right? But a double knot, it's going to loosen. It's going to open up. It may not be completely undone because a double knot tends to hold much longer than a single knot does. But the purpose is not for it to be an enduring knot. So since the purpose is not to be an enduring knot, so that's that's what we're saying. Okay. Good. Answered. Good. So not a problem. וקשר בודד שהיה קשור מלפני שבת, טוב להיזהר שלא להוסיף עליו קשר שני בשבת, לחזקו היטב. So he says like this, he says, however, if you have a knot, I'm not sure why he says this, but he quotes the name of Rabbi Beyda Yosef. He says, let's say you had a knot that was tied from before Shabbat, and now on Shabbat, what do you say? You say, you know what? I want to strengthen this knot. So what am I going to do? I'm going to tie a second knot on top of the knot that was tied before Shabbat. That, he says, you should not do. I don't know when anyone would do that, but okay. Kol kesher shelefamim hu nimlach alav ubatelo leolam, אף על פי שבשעת עשייתו לא הייתה דעתו מנת לקיימו לעולם, נחשב כאילו הוא קשר של קיימה ואסור לקושרו בשבת. אבל קשר שאין דרך לקיימו אלא רק לאיזה זמן מסוים לא לבטלו לעולם, אם גילה דעתו בפירוש שברצונו להתירו במוצאי שבת מותר לקושרו בשבת. So as we're saying about the kesher shel kayama, the lasting, the enduring knot, it's kind of, what was my intent when I tied it? What's the thought process when you're making that knot? So he says, listen, if it's a type of knot that sometimes you're going to change your mind, right? He says, even though at the time it wasn't his thought that it would last forever, it now would be considered a kesher shel kayama. Says, but if it was a knot that in general you don't make that way, and now he's letting everyone know, he's showing this is something that, and he's showing them, look, I want to untie this after Shabbat or whatever, then that would be fine. So the key thing is here that it goes by what my mind is when I'm tying it, right? So when I'm tying, so this is why shoelaces are generally not a problem, or something like this we're going to get to, but I take this sweatshirt. I would love to tell you I thought about this before and I didn't, but if I take this sweatshirt, right, and I tie it, I am not intending for this to last a long time. Why? Because I got to take the shirt off after, on Shabbat, right after Shabbat. So the thought process is really what makes the difference here. Okay. Kol kesher שאסור לקשור אותו בשבת, אסור גם הדקו אם נטרפה, ועל כן צריך לזהר שלא להדק את קשרי הציציות כשנטרפו. It says any tie that you're not allowed to tie on Shabbat, you're also not allowed to strengthen the tie. So where does this come into play? Tzitzit, right? You can't take your tzitzit and start yanking them, tying them, and so on and so forth. You should leave your tzitzit. You shouldn't be tying the tzitzit on Shabbat, even if they got weak, whatever, something like that. Just leave them and do it after the Shabbat. Mutar לקשור קשר ועניבה על גביו, אפילו על מנת להתקיים. בכל מקום טוב להחמיר שלא לקשור באופן זה, אלא כשעומד להתירו בתוך 7 ימים. אבל עניבה בלי שום קשר, או קשר אחד בלי עניבה, מותר אפילו על דעת להתקיים לעולם. So here we're talking about a tie, right? Joe asked about a tie yesterday, the tie that you don't see people wearing as much anymore because we're all online, but the tie, so you're allowed to make that tie on Shabbat. And the reason is because, well, we just said, because you don't, first of all, it's not a tradesman, artisan's art. It's a knot. Everyone makes it. And also, it's something that we don't intend to last a very long time. When you put on a tie, you intend to take it off that night before you go to sleep or whatever it is. So therefore, it's not a problem, and you can tie a tie. So the basic clothing things that we generally worry about, our shoelaces and our ties, those are not a problem. Halachachet. In kesher, unless the only thing that I would say where it might be a problem is, I don't know if you've ever seen this. I know some people that they tie their tie once and then they never untie it, right? And they just continually loosen it, slip it on, off, and whatever. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Not good for the tie, by the way, but okay. So I guess that person, to do that on Shabbat, they shouldn't do that, right? If you're going to do that, you might as well do that from before Shabbat. But other than that, it would be fine. In kesher shroch na'alo ba'erev Shabbat, in kashar shroch na'alo ba'erev Shabbat b'kesher ba'aniva, או בלא כוונה נקשר בשני קשרים זה על זה, מותר להתירו בליל שבת, ואם אינו יכול להתירו, מותר לחותכו ולנתקו, ולא יעשה כן לפני עם הארץ, פן יבוא לקהל יותר. So he is saying, he's talking about using a double knot for shoes on Shabbat. If you're going to say you can't double knot for shoes on Shabbat, which we hold that you can, so he says, so how can you untie it, right? Let's say you did it right before Shabbat, and now you want to untie it. He says you can. He says you can do it but you should try and do it in a funny sort of way. Now, we already said you're allowed to do it, so he's really he's just explaining towards the stringent opinion. So it would be allowed, and I'm not worried about that. Okay. A woman who is putting on like a kerchief or something, a lot of times the women, especially the women that cover their hair, they put on some kind of kerchief or something, and they tie a bandana, and they want to tie it. They can tie it, and they can even use what we would call a double knot. That's not a problem. He says you're allowed to do what you would call, what he's calling a kesher and aniva is like there's two parts to the knot, right? The part one of the knot is the X, right? So you make an X and then another X on top of it, right? That's a double knot. That's what he's calling a double knot. A kesher v'aniva is the X and then the two loops, kind of like what you do with the shoelaces. So that's what's called a kesher v'aniva. So what he was not liking, which many of us do, is so he's saying that a woman can do no problem as well. He says even to do the double knot they could do. What he was saying that maybe you don't want to do, but again, even this you're allowed to do, is the knot, then the loops, then the loops on top of the loops. But even that we'll say is allowed. Mutar b'Shabbat la'asot kesher v'aniva she'ondin lanoi kevan she'en ze nikra kesher shreba meshicha kala hu nitar v'chem mutar b'Shabbat la'tirat kesher aniva. He says so. Any kind of ties, and this is where a tie that you wear on the body is allowed. That's designed. That's a knot that's tied for decorative purposes, right? So like let's say some people take the sweater, right? And they put it over their shoulder, or something like that. Or sometimes you might see women do this more often, like they take the shirt over here and they do a tie like that. Or something like that. Anything like that is allowed because all those are decorative, and when it's decorative, so it's not shel kayama. It's just intended to be for a short period of time. That's on the clothing. Might be true. You might do that for the tablecloth, right? Or in the napkin or something like that. Those are all going to be allowed because they're all basically for temporary purposes. יש נוהגים שכשיש שמחה של בית הכנסת, שמחה של מצווה בבית הכנסת, מחלקים לציבור המתפללים ולילדים שקיות של סוכריות וממתקים, ולפעמים קשורים בשני קשרים זה על גבי זה. יש להקל להתירו שקיות אלא בשבת, ומקום לכתחילה עדיף יותר שלא לקושרם באופן זה, אלא ידקות השקיות עם גומיה. So he talks about the lebas. Right, the lebas often come in those little bags, right, and the bags often have a tie on them. So he says it's no problem to give it with the tie. He says, but if you want to be extra stringent and extra careful, so don't use a tie, use a rubber band or something like that. And so that's something else. Okay.
Rabbi, those are temporary. The kids are going to open it right away. It's not going to stay.
It's not a problem. Okay, let's stop here. We got a few more tying things to do, but I guess we'll get to that by Shabbat. But we did get the key things that we wanted to get to, which were the idea of tying shoes and putting on a tie, and most of the things that we'll do on Shabbat. Again, most of the situations are going to be allowed. The places where it comes into play that it becomes a problem is where we're tying more serious things, a boat, or we'll get to awnings or something like that. But something where you're doing a heavy-duty tie, and probably you're going to be using a tradesman's knot or something like that. That's where the ties become big issues. Or if we're trying to tie something down for a long, long period of time, even if we're not so good at the tradesman, it could still be a problem. Anyway, let's stop here and we'll pick up tomorrow.